In the annals of Roman history, the name Lucius Tarquinius Priscus shines as a beacon of innovation and strategic vision. Tarquinius Priscus, or Tarquin the Elder, was the fifth king of Rome and the first of its Etruscan dynasty. His military campaigns expanded Rome's influence, solidifying its position in the Italian peninsula. A strategic genius, he recognized the importance of alliances, forging key partnerships that would become the backbone of Rome's power. This is Rome Revisited. Join us as we explore the ancient Roman Empire, from Romulus to Constantine XI. Tarquinius reigned from 616 to 578 BC. He was born in the Etruscan city of Tarquini, where his father Demaratus was a wealthy merchant from Corinth. After inheriting his father's entire fortune, Lucius attempted to gain a political office. However, he was prohibited from obtaining political office in Tarquini because of the ethnicity of his father. He then moved to Rome with his wife Tanaquil, a skilled prophetess. According to legend, on the way to Rome an eagle took his cap and placed it back on his head, which Tanaquil interpreted as a sign of his future greatness. His charisma and intelligence soon captured the attention of Ancus Marcius, the reigning king in Rome, who appointed him as the guardian of his sons. When Ancus died, Tarquin managed to win the election for the kingship despite the opposition of the sons of Ancus. He claimed that he was the rightful heir since he was also a descendant of Numa Pompilius, the second king of Rome. Of his two daughters, one married Servius Tullius, the future sixth king of Rome. The other married Marcus Brutus and thus became the mother of Lucius Junius Brutus, the founder of the Republic. As king, Tarquin expanded Roman power and territory through military conquests and grand architectural projects. He waged war against the Latins, the Sabines, and the Etruscans and annexed several towns to Rome. According to Livy, Tarquin increased the number of the Senate members to 300 by adding 100 men from the leading minor families. Included in these was the family of the Octavii, from whom the first Roman Emperor Augustus was descended. He intended that those newly added to the Senate would be grateful for their position and thus loyal to him, strengthening his rule as king. Priscus introduced political reforms that laid the groundwork for the Roman Republic. His keen understanding of governance led to the division of Rome into administrative districts, foreshadowing the later Roman Republic structure. Priscus' reign was also marked by a divine encounter. The acquisition of the Sibylline books, prophetic writings foretelling Rome's destiny, added a spiritual dimension to his rule. He invested in many religious institutions, further strengthening the cultural and moral fabric of Rome. Tarquin is said to have built the Circus Maximus, the first and largest stadium in Rome for chariot racing. The Circus Maximus started out as an underwhelming piece of land but was built into a grand and beautiful stadium. Raised seating was erected privately by the senators and equites, and other areas were marked out for private citizens. There the king established a series of annual games. According to Livy, the first horses and boxers to participate were brought from Etruria. It received the name Circus Maximus as a way to set it apart from the other stadiums similarly built at this time. After a great flood, Tarquin drained the damp lowlands of Rome and constructed the Cloaca Maxima, Rome's great sewer. The arch was constructed in 578 BC and took inspiration from Etruscan structures of the earlier period. He also constructed a stone wall around the city and began the construction of a temple in honor of Jupiter on the Capitoline Hill. The latter is said to have been funded in part by the plunder seized from the Sabines. Tarquin's first war was waged against the Latins. Tarquinius took the Latin town of Appioli by storm and took great plunder from there back to Rome. According to the Fasti Triumphales, this war must have occurred prior to 588 BC. The Latins claimed that peace treaties developed by Romulus and the other Roman kings no longer applied and as such launched the first set of attacks. Seeing the opportunity to incorporate the Latins into Rome's ranks, Tarquin quickly responded by conquering multiple Latin cities. As a result, the Latins requested help from the Sabines and Etruscans. Choosing not to split up his military power, Tarquin chose to keep the attack on the Latins, leading to a Roman victory. Subsequently, the Latin cities of Corniculum, Old Ficulia, Cameria, Crustumerium, Emeriola, Medulla, and Nomentum were subdued and became Roman. After conquering the Latins, Tarquin began his assault on the Sabines. Having their base camped at the corner of two rivers, the Sabines were able to move their troops quickly and efficiently. Using his military cunning, Tarquin chose to launch a surprise attack on the base at night. He did this by setting a fleet of small boats aflame and then sending them down the river to set the Sabine camp on fire. While the Sabines were focused on dousing the flames, Tarquin and his troops moved in to dismantle the camp. Later, his military ability was again tested by an attack from the Sabines. Tarquin doubled the number of equites to help the war effort. The Sabines were defeated after difficult street fighting in the city of Rome. In the peace negotiations that followed, Tarquin received the town of Calatia, and appointed his nephew, Aruns Tarquinius, better known as Agarius, as commander of the garrison there. Tarquin returned to Rome and celebrated a triumph on September 13, 585 BC. Tarquin also wished to seek peace with the Etruscans, but they refused. Since Tarquin had kept the captured Etruscan auxiliaries prisoners for meddling in the war with the Sabines, the 5 Etruscan cities who had taken part declared war on Rome. 7 other Etruscan cities joined forces with them. The Etruscans soon captured the Roman colony at Fidenae, which thereupon became the focal point of the war. After several bloody battles, Tarquin was once again victorious, and he subjugated the Etruscan cities that had taken part in the war. At the successful conclusion of each of his wars, Rome was enriched by Tarquin's plunder. Tarquinius was the first Roman ruler to ever celebrate a Roman triumph. According to Florus, Tarquin celebrated his triumphs in the Etruscan fashion, riding a golden chariot drawn by 4 horses, while wearing a gold-embroidered toga and the tunica palmata, a tunic upon which palm leaves were embroidered. He also introduced other Etruscan insignia of civilian authority and military distinction. These include the scepter of the king and the trabea, a purple garment that varied in form, but was perhaps most often used as a mantle, the fasces carried by the lictors, the curule chair, the toga praetexta, later worn by various magistrates and officials, the rings worn by senators, the pallidamentum, a cloak associated with military command, and the phalera, a disc of metal worn on a soldier's breastplate during parades or displayed on the standards of various military units. Strabo reports that Tarquin introduced Etruscan sacrificial and divinatory rites, as well as the tuba, a straight horn used chiefly for military purposes. As a result, most classical Roman symbols for war harken back to his time as king. Tarquin is said to have reigned for 38 years. According to legend, the sons of his predecessor, Ancus Marcius, believed that the throne was stolen from them and thus made plans to get it back. They arranged the king's assassination by having 2 men disguised as farmers present a disagreement between themselves to the king for judgment. Their back-and-forth bickering would create enough of a ruckus that a riot would ensue. Then at the right moment, one of the men would plant an axe into Tarquin's head, which proved to be a fatal blow. However, Queen Tanaquil addressed the crowd that gathered outside the now-deceased king's chambers and gave out that the king was merely wounded. She took advantage of the confusion to establish Servius Tullius as regent. When the death of Tarquin was confirmed some time later, Tullius had ruled long enough and ably enough as regent that he was easily confirmed to become king in place of Marcius's sons or those of Tarquin. Servius Tullius became the 6th king of Rome and the 2nd of the Etruscan dynasty. Tarquin was the first king of Rome to have the surname Priscus, which means the elder. He was also the first king to wear a purple robe and a golden crown, symbols of royalty. He was a great warrior, a visionary leader, and a skilled builder. He left a lasting legacy for the history and culture of Rome. Tarquinius Priscus' legacy was not without shadows. His ambitious pursuits and foreign alliances stirred discontent among many in the Roman aristocracy, leading to his tragic end. His life, a tapestry of triumphs and tribulations, left an indelible mark on Rome's line of succession and thus its trajectory. As the sun sets over the majestic Roman Forum, we reflect on the life of Tarquinius Priscus, a king who dared to dream beyond the limits of his time, leaving behind a city transformed and a legacy that echoes through the corridors of history. His legacy lives on, and so could your knowledge about such fascinating pieces of history. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more captivating content about ancient Rome. Dive into the past and keep the spirit of antiquity alive. This is Rome Revisited.